Now, the guidelines for children are slightly different. I see we've got some under 18s here. Not to put you on the spot, but does anybody in the room know what the physical activity guidelines are for children in the UK? Yes?
300.
300 minutes. I have to do my sums here. Yes. So the current UK guidelines are that children should do 60 minutes of moderate activity daily, at least 60 minutes, which it does work out as about 300, doesn't it? Yeah. 500, yeah. So
60 minutes a day.
60 minutes a day, exactly. So at least 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity a day. So quite different from adults, a little bit more, but still an achievable amount. It doesn't have to be one block of activity. It could be broken down into 10-minute or 15-minute bouts. So if you think of a 15-minute walk to school, then maybe 20 minutes running around at lunchtime, 15-minute walk home, you can break it up in this sort of way, and it's not actually that much. However, at the moment in the UK, we've got quite low levels of activity in both adults and in children. Now, the most recent figures from the Scottish Health Survey suggested that only 48% of adult men and only 33% of women were actually achieving the physical activity guidelines. So really quite low levels. Given most people in this room feel that they're doing the recommended guidelines, 33% of women is actually quite low. Now, when we look at children, the figures are even more dismal, I would like to say. So when they're asked, only 40% of 11-year-old boys are achieving the guidelines, and only 25% of girls. However, this is with self-report data. Now, many people will know that with self-report data, we're not always massively accurate at saying what our health behaviour is. Not because we're trying to be deceitful, just actually it's quite difficult to estimate. For example, when doctors ask us how much alcohol we drink, most people tend to miss off a couple of units here or there. There's some of my students laughing in the corner there. People are asked to smoke. Sometimes they might miss off the last couple of cigarettes they've had in the day. Our weight is often one that we tend to underestimate. I know for myself, even when I weigh myself, it's first thing in the morning when I've had no food, and I breathe in and I stand on my toes because I can lose about 2 pounds if I do that, you know. We all do it. So self-report is not the best way to judge our health behaviour. So although when they were asked, 40% of boys and 25% of girls said they met these physical activity guidelines, there were quite different estimates when they were measured objectively. So what we found was that 19% of boys met the physical activity guidelines and 11% of girls. And that's aged between 11 and 15 years old. So 11%, that means almost 90% of girls aren't doing at least an hour of activity daily, which is quite a striking finding, I think. Now, in Scotland, we're used to being told that our health is a lot worse than lots of other countries. But actually, when we compare the physical activity guidelines to those internationally, we're not doing too badly. The average for 11-year-olds is about 23% meeting the physical activity guidelines. And that's taken from a lot of developing countries and also some developing countries as well. However, by 15 years old, only 19% of countries were actually meeting the physical activity guidelines. By 15 years old, only 15% of children were meeting the physical activity guidelines. So internationally, we're not doing very well. And actually, Italy seems to be the worst, with about 5% of girls meeting the guidelines, just in case anyone's interested. So although in Scotland we're not doing well, we're not the worst.